You guys have been saying that your cats have been in heat, but I'm the one who's been in heat.
Don't listen to me. I'm a legend of archery. Don't listen to me.
See what I'm talking about? Look how hot it is today. 75? What the hell? Okay, fine, that's a pretty average temperature. That's a normal temperature. That's pretty awesome as a temperature. But what sucks is when you add the humidity. That's what makes it terrible. I have a lot of notes today, so hopefully I'll get through it all. James mentioned how Radar was your nickname and your friends gave it to you from the show MASH, and then Lucy mentioned how she loved the show, and I also just wanted to mention that I laughed really hard when he said that because in Paper Towns, Quentin had nicknamed his friend Radar as well. And I just put that together. You also asked, what is your favorite place to travel to? And I've noticed some people saying also what their favorite trip was, so I'm going to do both. My favorite place that I've ever been to is Burlington, Vermont. It is so beautiful. I have been there so many times throughout between spring and fall. I've never been up there during the winter time though. But it is beautiful up there. It has like the south part of Burlington has this really nice small town feel to it, even though it's a big city. And it's really awesome because it's a big city that has the same feel as my hometown, even though my hometown is starting to get that big city feel, and I don't like that. Burlington is my favorite place to visit, but my favorite trip was last year when I went down to North Carolina for my cousin's wedding. We did so many awesome things on that trip. I saw so many awesome new things. I did so many awesome new things. I had so many new experiences, and it was the longest that I had ever driven to get anywhere. I drove from, I've said this before, from Saugerties, my hometown, to Virginia Beach. Along that trip, I got to drive across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and when you first get on the bridge, you, one, can't even see the land on the other side, and two, you can't even see the end of the bridge. It is a huge bridge just out in water. Once you're on the bridge, you don't see any land. It's insane. So that is why it's my favorite trip. You also talked about card shops in your area, and when I was a little kid, when Pokemon came out, we used to have card shops as well. There were like 3 or 4 different places you could go to get Pokemon cards. But now that I'm older, those have all closed down and have been replaced by either bike shops, bookstores, or antique stores. Which sucks because our town is known for antiquing. The main stretch in our town goes Market Street, Main Street, Partition Street. It's this little Z shape. It's just lined with antique stores. You're going up Market Street, antique store, and then you go antique store, and then convenience store, across the street, antique store, card shop, pizza place, across the street, furniture store, antique shop, and it's just like 5 antique shops down Main Street, and then you turn down Partition Street, and then there are more antique shops. And you also mentioned cross-country and running that, and I also ran cross-country in high school, and the other day I wanted to find my cross-country uniform because I stole it at the end of the season my senior year. TJ, up until the 15-second mark of your video, it rhymed pretty well. You also brought up the discussion of being part of the YouTube community, and I have been part of the YouTube community for a whopping 3 years now. I have been on YouTube for about 4 or 5 years, but the first 2 years was just, you know, make an account so you can like add all the funny cat videos to your favorites and whatever. I have been a part of it for a really long time. I came across the Vlogbrothers back in 2008. Yeah, 2008, just after I'd graduated, June 2008. I remember that. And while I'm talking about the Vlogbrothers, you had started a sentence about the Vlogbrothers that you got caught off by your cat. What were you saying? Please say it again. Because it's really bothering me that you got cut off and sidetracked. And you mentioned on your playlist that Motion City soundtrack song, and in my opinion you pronounced it wrong. I don't think there's really any correct pronunciation for it, but I call it LG Fwad. That's just how I pronounce it, because I like to pronounce things that aren't supposed to be pronounceable. And also on the subject of censorship, I don't like the fact that they had to censor the name of that song, because the actual name of the song is called Let's Get Fucked Up and Die. And that's how I've always known the song. I bought the album, and I'm pretty sure that's what it said on the back cover. I don't know, I haven't checked it, but when I remember when I put it onto my computer, iTunes brought it up as Let's Get Fucked Up and Die, not LGFUAD. Jins, I loved the analogy of my hat being a Harry Potter wand, where the hat chose me. That was fantastic. You also talked about reading and how when you were a little kid you didn't like to read. I was the opposite, almost to a T, because I loved reading when I was a little kid, even before I knew how to read. My mom told me this story once. She brought us to this place and they had a bookstore there. And she lost me in this bookstore. And about 30 minutes later, she found me sitting in a beanbag chair, cuddled in the corner. So my back was turned to the world, so it was just me and the book. And so it was less noticeable to see me. And when my mom finally found me, she found me in the chair reading a book, and the book was upside down. Danielle, you mentioned that you took woodshop instead of home ec. When I was in school, they made us take 2 years of home ec and 2 years of woodshop. We called it technology in our school district, and we called home ec in our school district home and careers, so just different names for the same thing, really. You talked about sheltering when you were a kid and stuff like that, and I don't know why, but it popped into my head, and I remember my first rated R movie, and it was The Last Samurai when I was 13 years old. That was the first rated R movie I've seen, and my dad took me to see it in theaters. And I don't know why when you were talking about the whole sheltering thing, that popped into my head, but I just wanted to mention it. And the movie Signs, you said you don't like it because you know where the part's coming up, but it still scares you every time. I loved that movie. That is one of my all-time favorite movies just because of my memories of it. Because me and my friend went to go see it in theaters 6 times. A whopping 6 times in theaters. We probably shouldn't have paid that much money to see it that many times, but we did. Rima, you said we should do the artist recommendation thing with more obscure artists and that stuff. And I just want to say that if you want to know an obscure artist, come to me, because I know plenty. If we ever do something like that, I could go on and on and on and on about it. It is just so many that I could tell you. Also said how the only card games you played were like playing card games, like poker and stuff like that. And a few years ago, I went through this phase where I was obsessed with poker, to the point where I have this poker set, I have this thing of poker chips, I've got these 2 things of green felt for, Texas Hold'em, and I even have a card shuffler. That's how obsessed I was with it, that people would get me these things just because they knew how much I liked poker. Lucy, you weren't the only one who mentioned Phineas and Ferb to my platypi thing, but I just want to say that I wasn't even thinking of Phineas and Ferb when I mentioned the platypus. The platypus is just my favorite animal ever, of all time. I have a Beanie Baby upstairs somewhere. I'm gonna go find it eventually. This is my platypus Beanie Baby. And you also talked about how awesome it was, how we are all interacting with each other, and I think that this collab channel was meant to happen. This was meant to be as a thing. Because if you think about it, all these unlikely things happened to where we became where we are now. When TJ first threw out the idea for it, you guys almost closed it off at 6 people, and me and Jins were the last 2 people that were being decided between. And the first week when we finally started it, Ben never showed up. So me and Jins both ended up becoming a part of it, which I think is awesome. And then James messaged TJ about joining us, even though it's a little late, and we all accepted him in, and now he's a normal part of our routine. So I think that this whole thing was meant to happen. We were all supposed to know each other, we're all supposed to be friends, and our lives will be awesome because of it. Driving playlist. everybody was going through telling us what their playlist was for when they go on road trips or whatever and long drives. But I don't have one. Well, my playlist, I guess, for when I do like normal things like going to school or work or driving to a friend's house, my car doesn't have a CD player or a cassette player, so I have to listen to the radio. So whatever's on the radio is my playlist for that. And then whenever I do go on long road trips, like when I go up to Burlington, Vermont, my car is so old that my mom doesn't let me drive it that far. So I use her car, which does have a CD player, but it doesn't have like an MP3 player input or anything, just the CD player. So what I do is about an hour before we're leaving to get in the car and go, I go to my CD rack and I just look through it and pick like 4 or 5 CDs that I'm in the mood to listen to at that moment. And we take those CDs in the car and we put one in, hop on the thruway, and start going up towards Vermont. And we just switch them out whenever the CD's done. One time when we were going up, I had just gotten Mumford & Sons' new album, Sigh No More, and we had brought along like 4 other CDs and then the Mumford & Sons CD. And the Mumford & Sons one was the only one we listened to. It was 4 hours nonstop from here to Burlington of nothing but Mumford & Sons' Sigh No More album. And then we did it again on the ride home back from Burlington. So it was 8 straight hours of Mumford & Sons, and it was awesome. And then there was TJ and Jins who congratulated me for telling that guy that I'm filming in public because I can, and I just want to say that was a fluke, I swear. I've mentioned before that I'm scared of filming in public places, and I'm scared of filming in front of the only place I can film myself in public is with my friends and people that I know, and the only reason I wasn't scared of that guy was because he was in my English class last semester, and I knew who he was, and we had talked before, and we were sort of acquaintances, so it was a lot less awkward than if it was just a complete stranger asking me. Alright, I am done with this for today. I'm done talking about everything I need to talk about except for one thing that I'm saving for the end, and if you're subscribed to my main channel and you saw my video for Vita on Tuesday, you already know what I'm talking about. I just want to say this because I've been working so hard on this. For the past couple of months, since about January, I've been working on a secret project with one of my friends. For the past few months, I have been working on my very first EP. It is called One for the Road, and I am giving it away for free download. I will leave a link to it in the underbar. It's specialguest.bandcamp.com, and it's a 3-song EP for free. So go, download it, enjoy it, make it part of your driving playlists, and whatever. I'm really proud of how this turned out, and so I'm telling everyone about it, and I don't care if you go and download it or not, I just wanted to make you aware that it exists. So, thank you for listening to this short ramble about that. Again, I've been talking about this way too much, and I'm apologizing to everyone who I talked to it about at this point, because I've been saying it so often. But it's available for free download if you want to go listen to it. I'll leave it in the underbar, and that's that. James, I will see you tomorrow. DFTBA.